Hello, interwebs. It is nope. We're not doing that is not what we're doing. Anyways, hello interwebs. Welcome to my review of Season 3 of Infinity Train, a show that I have truly just come to cherish and just absolutely love with each passing episode of this show. For those of you who don't know, I've already done reviews of Season 1 and 2 of Infinity Train, so I'm going to go full spoilers into Season 3 here, but Infinity Train, just to give you a brief synopsis, is this really beautiful anthology series set on this mystical train that is basically infinite, and each car is its own little universe. And everyone on this train, or at least all the humans put onto this train, all get assigned a number, which is basically a sort of a indication of their personal growth. If the number goes down, they get off the train, and they get the number down by sort of learning and growing and sort of working through some of their personal issues going on within the series. And this season particularly, but the thing that I love most about this show is that it's a wonderful show about teaching empathy, about teaching characters. The characters are always sort of dealing with learning about empathy or having people come to understand their empathy, and this season is no different, and yet it takes a much darker tact than the previous two seasons in a way that I found difficult to watch at times, but ultimately necessary. An important thing to recognize when we talk about empathy and what it means to have empathy. This season of the show follows the characters of Grace and Simon. Grace is sort of more the main protagonist, but they kind of share a dual protagonist role to a degree. And these are characters who are part of the Apex. They have created this group of people who sort of misunderstood what the situation on the train is. Instead of trying to get their number down, they believe they need to get their number up. And by getting their number up, they do bad things, do worse things, like make their personal growth, become worse people, essentially. And how they have done this in order to justify their actions and being terrible people is they have depersoned all the other people on the train who are not humans, who do not have a number, and sort of made them be seen as non-entities, as things that are there for them to use, abuse, destroy at their own whim, because they are humans and they are more important. If the implications of what this show is touching upon are not immediately clear, I don't know what you're missing, because this is really about empathy and about how we view other people. It's a very political message, even though it's told through the metaphor of these trains and humans versus denizens. But this is part of what social issues are all about. That's what they're based upon. The idea that we dehumanize and deperson other people, and as such, we are allowed to abuse, and dispose of them at our own whim because we're seen as more important. And I think that is a very difficult topic to broach within a children's series, but ultimately one deeply important to go through. And this show does it very ably, and it does not shy away from how dark that can get, because essentially Grace and Simon get separated from the group, from the rest of the Apex, the group of children that they have sort of raised up, and have to get back to them. And they encounter a girl named Hazel, who at first glance appears to be human. And I will credit, I talked to Vera Wild, of Council of Geeks, the YouTuber Council of Geeks, about the show, so I'll credit her with this sort of talking point here, but it's something that I can't miss in my discussion of my reviews, but I will credit her with her thought on this as we discuss this. But Grace starts to empathize with Hazel, and really understands Hazel, and gets her to come over to her own side and join the Apex, but she uses her empathy to teach her how to deperson people. Hazel being a young girl who's fallen in love with this person named Tuba, this sort of like tuba-wielding gorilla, one of the denizens of the train. And Grace teaches Hazel through empathy to destroy her empathy for others. That Grace has able to empathize with a human, but not another person who happens to be different from who she is. And is only able to empathize with Hazel despite meeting Tuba at the exact same time because she's seen as human. Dark stuff. Simon is a very interesting character on the converse side. He is someone who just completely lacks empathy, has no ability to empathize really at all. He even sees Grace to a degree as someone who is there for his own usage, but he sort of allows her. He doesn't really understand how much he needs her, but he doesn't really see her as his own thing too. And I thought that was really depthful as well, that he is able to respect her, but he ultimately still kind of sees himself as the most important thing. And it plays out in very, very subtle ways until it doesn't, until it becomes very, very obvious. And so as we go through the season, I think this is really wonderful as we sort of develop our understanding of these characters. I think Simon, his absolute need to be the center of attention, and his also his that comes from a feeling of being betrayed and not being from being betrayed earlier in his life by the cat who we meet later this season, which I really like getting some backstory on her and her connection to Simon, which is really nice to finally get a little bit more about her and why she's so distant from everybody, because she was someone who was close to Simon and abandoned Simon. So Simon feeling of abandonment and needing to be self-reliant, or feeling that he needs to be self-reliant, has sort of imposed this thing of like lack of trust of others and sort of becoming self-reliant and distancing himself from others, which is really, again, very depthful understanding of how this sometimes comes out of people. Really, really wonderful. And I cannot tell you how really dark but wonderful this season became, because there's the moments where we all knew it was coming, but Simon eventually kills Tuba in a really dark way. And as a kid's show, there was an element of me that thought like, oh, Tuba's not really dead, because we don't see the final moments of Tuba's life. But it was ballsy that the show did end up leaving Tuba dead. Tuba stays dead. And there's no other way that could have really gone. It was what it was building towards, but it was dark as all hell and painful to watch. And then we get this wonderful episode where Simon goes into Grace's head, and we learn that the reason she is the way she is that she acts out for attention. She wants to just be seen. And so that's why she's able to have a little bit more empathy than Simon, because her trauma comes from a different place. But her acting out just is really just from a place of just wanting to be seen and heard and viewed as a full person. And I love the whole sequence here where Grace sort of yells at Simon and is like, you don't get to come in and like judge my memories. You don't get to like tell me how to feel about things. You don't get to control me that much. You don't get to control my own memories, because that's what Simon needs. He needs to control others. Again, very nuanced and depthful, but well done within the show. Very dark though. And at the end of the season, we basically have a standoff between Grace and Simon. But then towards the end of the season, we reveal that Hazel is actually one of the denizens of the train, that she wasn't actually human, but is one of like the turtle people. And I also loved running into the original conductor and the revelation to the growth, Grace and Simon, how they misinterpreted everything, and Simon able to understand that, but Simon being unable to accept that, and Grace being able to. And with Grace being able to understand that, she also understands when she learns that Hazel is not a human being, but then because of her ability to empathize with Hazel, she's able to start to understand like, oh, the horrors of what I've been able to do, of what I've been doing, and able to push back against that, and able to like start lowering her number. But Simon unable to do that, and it leads to a confrontation between the two of them. Really great like final episode where they fight each other, and Grace sort of stands up and sort of fights for like, no, we need to start seeing people as people, and the denizens of the train as people. And it's a really sort of hard episode to watch, because you do get the sense that Simon and Grace do care about each other. And the show doesn't shy away from the fact that Grace does save Simon's life, but Simon ultimately, because he's unable to grow, dies. It's dark. But I also like that the season ends on a hopeful but not completely successful note. It's not with Grace getting... I was worried that seeing how fast her number was going down towards the end, that Grace was going to be able to get off the train, that she was like, yeah, I did it, and I worked through everything. But the season doesn't end that way. She's working towards it still. She hasn't completely learned her lesson. She hasn't completely earned her way off the train after all the horrible stuff she did, and I think that that's appropriate. I felt it would have been a little bit too easy for Grace to get off the train that quickly with one good deed. I think she has a lot that she needs to atone for, and a lot that she still needs to grow through. And I like that the show ends that way, that she's not fully forgiven, nor has she fully worked through everything, but she's on the right path now, as opposed to the path that she was on, which was much darker. And so ultimately, this season, I don't necessarily know if I liked as much as season 1 or season 2, but I hesitate to call it weaker. I think the reason I hesitate to say I like it more is, don't like it as much, is because it's just much harder. This show, this season, despite the fact that it is still a kid show, it doesn't get like dark, like nitty gritty, like, rated R stuff. Is one of the darker things that I've seen in media, just because of the way it tactfully addresses very real dynamics of how this stuff like empathy works and how we deperson people. And the show never shies away from it, never looks away from it, and never allows itself to make it easy to deal with that. And as such, this is a pitch perfect example of when people say you don't need to be dark and gritty to be hard, to be depthful, to be something difficult to watch, and yet say something important and nuanced and deep. And I think this is a perfect example of that. And ultimately, it's a great season, and I love this show. That's all I can really say about it. I love this show. This show is fantastic, and you need to watch it. But I'd love to hear what you thought about it. Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear all of that. Don't forget to subscribe. I have a Patreon. They help me out on all of that stuff. But beyond all of that, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you live long and stay sexy.